Hello, this is DJ Ocean Spray, and you're listening to WKNC 88.1 Raleigh HD1. I am here with an off-the-record interview today, and I am here with Will Younts.
Hey, I'm Will Younts. I am an instructor of record at North Carolina State University. I teach English 101, and I'm also a musician, and I'm a graduate student studying English literature.
So to start off with, how long have you been interested in music?
Interested in music, I guess, since I was like 4 or something, probably. My mom played music all the time in the house. So did my dad. It was like REM from my mom, Leonard Skinner from my dad. It was a great combo. But then I started playing the drums very randomly when I was like 7. My parents just got me a drum set, and it worked out. I ended up like practicing from like 3 p.m. till like dinner time, and then like after dinner time till my parents asked me to stop, pretty much for like 12 years or so. And then, so a long time is the answer to the question.
And where are you from?
I'm from Gastonia, which
Okay.
is about 30 minutes southwest of Charlotte.
And where did you go for undergrad, and like what did you study?
I studied jazz music performance at UNC Asheville.
And so I am very curious as to like why you're studying English at State. Like, what are you wanting to gain from it?
Well, basically, like, after studying music, I worked as a musician for a long time. Basically, leading up to COVID, I was like playing in a trio like 4 or 5, 6 nights a week, paying my bills, playing the drums, and that felt great mostly. And then COVID happened, and all my gigs disappeared. And eventually, like, I started teaching music a little bit more, and then I started a writing club in Asheville. And it was just basically friends like sharing poetry and stories we wrote on Sundays at 11 in a park. It was really sweet. It's still ongoing. There's like a chapter at Chapel Hill now. Shout out Lila Richardson. And then I was like, okay, I think I want to do something more with this sort of interest in words and thoughts and ideas. And my best friend, O Stone, goes here to State and is in more of the science area. And I was like, I want to live with O again. And so I applied to State, and I got in, luckily. If I hadn't gotten in, I would just be living here, probably playing more drums and stuff. But yeah, so I mean, now I want to go on and get my PhD and maybe eventually become a professor. But really, I just like thinking about things that people put in books with other people.
That's really cool. And so when you were in college, were you in a band then as well?
Yeah, so I was in a lot of projects. I was about to say the main thing I did, but I don't know what the main thing I did was. I was mostly playing in jazz ensembles through school, but I played in a band of my own called Swamp Hag, which is like a noise rock sort of thing, with my good friend Mary. And then I started playing with my friend Ethan in a band with Indigo D'Souza called Icky Brickets, which is her more like neo-soul thing. And O was also in that band. O was the bassist of that band. And then eventually I started playing guitar in MJ Lenderman. And yeah, I think that actually covers the bands I was in. Yeah. But I would play with other people a lot. Like I would sort of sub in with people, and I played with a band called Sham for a while. Different things. I played in a band called Sinai Vessel for a very short period of time. Yeah.
And so like with your interest in English and music, I feel like they definitely like overlap a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of further explore that, I wanted to know like who your favorite authors are or like books.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess like in terms of being an academic, I study Herman Melville.
Mm-hmm.
of Moby Dick fame and Billy Budd fame. Um, but I've said for a while that my favorite author is this person named Eileen Miles. They wrote a story or a book of short stories called Chelsea Girls, which is amazing. And also I've loved Maggie Nelson in the past, who kind of got me into Eileen Miles and a lot of other people, and is definitely the reason that I'm in graduate school, because of her book, The Argonauts, which sort of threw me headfirst into like theory and into thinking about things, both from like a sort of personal perspective and like a really intense theoretical perspective, and doing them at the exact same time, which was really mind-blowing when I was in college and undergrad. So yeah, I think that covers. I also love Jamaica Kincaid, who's a more contemporary author from Antigua. Yeah, I think that covers that.
And then for like the music side, who are your favorite musicians or like albums or even songs?
Yeah, I love Elliott Smith. He is like my hero in a lot of ways, musically. I don't have the type of relationship with Elliot that a lot of people do, I think, which is like that they got into him when they were like super sad teens, and like, and that his music sort of helped them feel validated and that and stuff. I grew up listening to him like in the car when I was like 5, 6, like till I was like 12. And so I just find it's really beautiful music. And it feels comforting to me specifically. So yeah, I love Elliot. I listen to a lot of Joni Mitchell and Bjork. And yeah, since I've been in grad school, I haven't been listening to music nearly as much as I used to, for better, for worse. I also really like this band called $75 Bill from New York. Just like super weird, like improvised, not super weird, but weird improvised music that's just a percussionist and a guitarist, and they kind of play the same rhythm and melody for like 30 minutes at a time and put little variations and stuff, and I think it's really beautiful.
I really like that you're a fan of both Bjork and Joni. I feel like they're very different sounds. And so I appreciate the range with that. Do you feel like you see similarities in what you tend to read and like what you consume musically as well?
Yeah. I think that I just asked this question with my one-on-one students the other day. Is like I push them to think about what makes something beautiful to them, and a lot of them were like, "That's a ridiculously difficult question," you know. And I was like, "Yeah, I don't have an answer, you know." But I think what I enjoy in all three of those artists, Elliot, Joni, and Bjork, is like there's a certain like tenderness in them all that doesn't try to I don't know. It doesn't try to. It's not like romanticizing tenderness in a way. Like it's not making it easy. It's difficult, specifically, actually. And I mean, Joni Mitchell is like famous for being a real like heartbreaker, you know, and Bjork is like viciously like a mother and like writes songs like that are so sexual and so intense, like, yeah. So yeah, I think there's a tenderness that's like realistic about all of those artists. And I think that is one of the things that I love to see in literature also. Yeah.
I'm going to take a little break to play Shelley Duvall from O Stone and Will Younts.
The porch lights up the rims of the wagon you call Wendy, like Shelley Duvall.
you seem to be fairly immersed in like the Asheville scene and have a lot of connections with, the very popular musicians
Hmm.
from that area. What is it like to, I don't know, I feel like be around so many like talented and creative people?
Complicated. Um, there's a lot of personalities, as with any people, but musicians are a different type of, you know, uh, different. There's different stuff going on in the noggin, So, I mean, I can't really speak to what it's like to be a part of the Asheville scene now. When I was really immersed in it, it was really cool. I mean, there was this venue called the Mothlight that was like a really legendary special place. And for a time, our friend Andy Lobes, who's now in Pennsylvania, they were organizing, like they were booking every Monday night. They would have like local Mondays, and like people would go in and do like weirdest stuff, like just fully improvised sets, like freaky weirdo stuff. And yeah, I think that it was a really great place for a handful of years. I mean, I also only moved to Asheville in 2016, so I don't really have a good sense of the scene before that, which certainly was important. Um, yeah, I mean, I think for me also, like I was a drummer mostly, so I was literally in the back, I was supporting everybody else. Um, I think that something that I experienced a little bit was, I think for a long time I wanted to write my own music, but I felt sort of stifled by my role as a drummer, and so I didn't really do that hardly at all. So I mean that's kind of a negative answer to your very like positive question, but I mean that's my own personal experience with it. And yeah, I mean it was beautiful. It's really inspiring to be a part of such varied sort of projects. And I was like seeing Wednesday all the time when they're like in like basements and stuff. And I was in school with Carly, and yeah, it was cool. It was a scene.
Yeah. So how would you compare it to kind of like the Raleigh Durham area um scene now that you don't live in Asheville?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that it's really hard to compare them because Asheville is so small. I mean, I don't know population wise. And Asheville, because of how it's situated, it has to be sort of all scrunched together, because of the mountains and everything. But whereas in Raleigh and Durham and Chapel Hill, I think of Chapel Hill as part of the scene too. It's so spread out, and like if like oh, and I played a show last year at School Kids in Chapel Hill, and it's like 45-minute drive, and we're like asking our friends to come, and like some of our friends did come from Raleigh to Chapel Hill. That's a tall order to make. And that's something that I've struggled with here is that I really wish that there were. I mean, for example, like I wish there was a venue on Hillsborough Street. That would be mind blowing. That would be so cool. And I think it's great that y'all host music on campus. I think it's really cool that during Hopscotch y'all have like shows like in front of the library sometimes, right? That's awesome. I think stuff like that should happen all the time. Yeah, I mean it's really hard to compare it. I think also here because there's so many more bands, there's so many more people. There's a lot more like styles happening. Like I feel like there's a lot more like hardcore and like heavier stuff happening here than there is in Asheville. At least at the places that I would go to. I spent a lot of time at Static Age and the Mothlight, and I didn't really go to the auditorium or other places in Asheville where there was more heavy stuff. So I don't know. I think that it would be great if there was just like a kind of cruddy, like rundown, spot that a bunch of people pitched in on to like run, and they would, have shows. Yeah.
I feel like around like NC State at least we have a lot of like house shows and outdoor things, whereas like around UNC they have small like little indoor venues. By this time of the year it's not that fun to be outside when it's like 20 degrees.
Yeah,
so
definitely. And that's really difficult, yeah, and that also makes it difficult to have house shows too, because it's like all these people breathing on each other. You don't really know everybody who's coming. Yeah, it's complex.
And so other than do you have like friendships or really know other musicians in this area?
Mostly no. I have two good friends who, as far as I know, still live in Chapel Hill. They both went to UNC, named Lila Richardson and Audrey Keelan, who are both like Asheville folks, like grew up around Asheville, who write really great music together, and separately too. But for the most part, I mean, not really. I'm aware of like some bands out of Durham, but not. Oh, and like we know like the Truth Club folks, of course, but for the most part, no. And we don't really know people who are like making similar music to us. So like when we want to like book a show, it's like who do we call? And we kind of struggle with that, which is at once like cool because we're like, okay, we're doing something special, but then it's also isolating,
Yeah. And so more about you and O. Do you write the songs, or both of you like together, or how does that work?
Yeah, so our first thing that we put out is called Big Hot Looking Bright Cloud, which actually, to your question earlier, is a little bit out of a William Faulkner book. Totally random. I was like, okay, that's the name of the album. That first thing that we did, which was a few years ago, I think it came out in 2019 or 2020. No, 2020 or 2021. 2020, I think, summer 2020. But that was literally a split, and we called it O Stone and Will Younts to try to denote that it was a split, And it went, we did one song together, but I had written the song, and then everything else was like, O wrote it, then I wrote it and recorded it. We didn't record anything but one song together. And so it was a true split where it's totally split up. But this record we did all together. We lived together. We recorded it in our house. But most of the songs are still written by just one of us, really. We heard this quote by one of our favorite bands, Deerhoof, about the fact that like all the members of Deerhoof like make entire songs like on their own, like in their own houses, like across the country sometimes. And then like they make a demo of it and then they record pieces to go onto it. And then they say like, oh, we can't even remember who recorded what, and we can't remember who made the original demo. And so they're like, it just belongs to the band,
Yeah.
And I love that. And that's kind of a principle that O and I swear by. Like we work hard to sort of get our egos out of it and to feel that we're both, that it's a really mutual thing, right? That we're both contributing and constituting the songs themselves. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to take credit for Shelley Duvall because I think that's like a masterpiece of a song. But yeah, I mean, we definitely share responsibility for all the songs.
And how long have you and O known each other?
I guess we've known each other since like maybe 2017, 2018. I first met O like when I just knew them as like this badass bassist in Indigo's band and in this other band called Slugly. And I thought they were very cool, and they were apparently like we would see each other around like UNCA, and there was like a sort of mutual like, oh, you're too cool for me thing. So we never really interacted until I started playing in Indigo's band, and then we were like homies. But then we really got to know each other once we started living together in Asheville, in this very special situation. It was right during the lockdown. Everybody was broke, I mean, broke and on unemployment, and just like staying at home, which was a really wonderful combo to develop a budding friendship, so yeah. And then, yeah, so I guess it's about 2018.
Yeah.
Or 19.
I feel like it's very interesting seeing, I guess you guys are very close friends, seeing you create something together. I think it's really special. I don't know, because I feel like you can definitely tell when, a band, like, just works so well together, and it's just kind of like a mishmash of things, kind of. And I believe Justin Morris.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, like, with his project Sluice, he has Avery on the drums, and Avery also drums for Indigo. And then he has Oliver plays, I think, the bass, and then they have this other.
They have all sorts of things.
They have, I
Yeah.
forgot what it's called. It's like, I don't know. It's like some traditional Indian instrument.
Oh, is it a harmonium?
I
Like the little piano, and it has like an organ thing, and it like
yeah, it's
pumps
like on
air.
the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's
And
a
so
harmonium.
yeah, and so like they have all of this, but then they also have Weirs, which is like
Yeah,
Oliver's project, and it's just like really cool seeing how like how everybody kind of like works together, and like how you and O, like it's just like something you kind of make together.
hmm
And I think it's really beautiful when that can like just work out very well for people.
yeah, yeah.
Um, let me see. So to go again about Justin, your music with O kind of reminds me of Sluice's music. I love finding like similarities between all
hmm
these people who are like kind of connected, and I guess you guys are all, you know, like around the Asheville kind of, or have been in
hmm
like the Asheville
hmm
scene. And it's like Justin's music reminds me of Indigo's music because it goes from like so quiet to so loud,
Mm.
and your music reminds me a lot of Justin's because it's just kind of like the lyrics will just be like, I don't know, my mom says it like he's just talking. Like he'll just be like, "Oh, we just swam in the river and I'm drinking a beer."
Yeah.
And my mom thinks it's so funny. And your music, I feel like um is similar to that.
Mm.
And it's just like very like genuine, like you're just saying like some, like I feel like you're not trying too hard, you know, like
Mm.
some people just like make it so complicated.
hmm
But I think it's really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a real. I think that's a real sort of thing. One of the great things about the fact that everybody can make art and can just put an album on the internet or put a poem on the internet or whatever, is that there often is like somehow like more sincerity in it, because I mean I feel really uncomfortable in like a studio setting where I'm like playing drums and they're all perfectly mic'd up. Like when I tell people that and I recorded our record like all in our house, like they're like, wow. And I'm like, no, it's so like the given, like that's so exactly what we want to do. It's not special. Like it's special in the most ordinary way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it makes, I don't know. I feel like you can definitely tell the difference in the
Mhm.
music like that.
Yeah.
And so do you play anything other than the drums?
Yeah. So I play drums and guitar mostly. I mean, really, I mostly play guitar. If we're looking at stats right now,
Yeah.
I'm still competing with my 7 years old to like 17 era. That was a lot of drumming, but I play guitar all the time, and I play bass and keys and sing and whatnot too. So throughout our record, like it's all mixed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you guys use any like pedals or anything like, I guess, different to make your sound?
Not pedals in general. I would say our secret weapon is this little 8-track that we have that is like a digital 8-track. It's a Tascam, so it has the supposed mojo to it, but it's a digital 8-track that is like so limited in what it can do, but it has a really great sound to it. And a lot of times we'll run that into O's like Tascam 4-track that's an actual tape and stuff. And we don't have any real like things that we do like consistently for our sound, but we also, I mean, we play a lot of acoustic instruments when we record. Even if it's going to be a loud song, it might still be mostly acoustic, which is like a sound that we sort of attribute, or that I sort of attribute to like bands like Lomelda and Joni Mitchell and stuff like that. Yeah.
And what would you kind of like classify the music you and O make as, like genre wise, or even like a little description?
I don't know. I think that one thing that we say sometimes, it's sort of a description, is that it's soft songs played loud, or that it's quiet songs played loud. I'm terribly opinionated and sort of resent the idea of classifying music by genre for a number of reasons. But yeah, that's another conversation. Yeah.
And like, how would you compare the music that like you make versus what you listen to? Like, what do you listen to that maybe you take pieces of that doesn't necessarily sound like what you end up making?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would be so flattered if anybody ever said that any of the music we made sounded anything like any of the artists I listened to. But I feel like they probably won't really. Sometimes we get compared to Alex G, which I think is strange. Because I don't think we're nearly as like sort of cynical and like dark as Alex G is. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I actually just remarked to O the other day as we were like practicing a little bit for a show that didn't happen. I said I think it's cool that none of our music sounds anything like the music that we listen to. I don't know how completely true that is. Maybe that's a totally like egotistical like, dream or something. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's certain I think the thing I can say is that we make certain decisions based on people we like. Mm-hmm. Like the drum sound of this Lamelda record called Hannah is like so beautiful and like full and rich and stuff. And we specifically like tried to do that. And one song called Meteor Song I made, I was trying to make like a shoegaze song, like more like Phil Elverum or something. And then also like the entire idea of like doubling guitars and doubling vocals is like, I'm like trying to sound like Elliott Smith, like because it's a beautiful sound. But I think, you try to do these little things and then ultimately you find that those aren't the things that actually make that person sound like them, it's their songs,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I feel like it's very interesting to me. And I guess I know at this point you were drumming and not necessarily like writing these songs. But, previously you drummed for Icky Brickets and stuff, and that's like a very different sound to what you're making now. And, I mean, I guess MJ Lenderman is closer to like your current sound. But I feel like, and, while at that time, you weren't, these aren't the songs that you were writing, I feel like it's definitely valuable to like gain experience from making these different sounds and stuff and contributing to music that's like very different from what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry for interrupting you before I
It's
understood
okay.
your question. Yeah, totally. I mean, being a drummer for like a long time and then sort of entering into more the front of the stage, like playing guitar, like that felt like a step out for me. Because also like with MJ, I was like improvising a lot, like playing a lot of stuff that like he didn't write and didn't ask me to play. And so there was like a big creative element there. And that was true for Icky Brickets too. Like I was coming in after a different drummer who just kind of like played the parts. And I came in and like did a whole bunch of stuff, and O and I would like improvise together a lot. And so there's a lot of creativity happening, but that's really different from like the creativity happening sort of isolated, like in a room writing a song. It's really different. Yeah, it definitely was. It played a huge part, I think, and it was a really big transition, especially singing. Like I still don't really feel like I sing. I feel like I sort of talk, and I don't know, kind of make my talking into a melody.
And to kind of change gears a little bit, do you go to a lot of concerts and like see a lot of live music?
I don't. I'm sort of, I kind of feel like I'm in like hibernation as a musician right now in certain ways. I really struggle with concerts a lot of the time. Like a few years in a row I played, or I can't remember if in a row, but I've played Hopscotch several times, and I really like that music festival because it's like in the city. Their venues are like spread out and stuff. But still, I really struggle with large concerts. And so like if a house show is happening, I'll try to go to the house show. If a show is happening somewhere like School Kids that's small, I'll try to go there. But for the most part, like I really don't go see music. It's also like difficult for me because I'm not on Instagram, and I feel like people only promote via Instagram right now. I am of the era that used Facebook events a lot, and that was awesome. And you could see who was genuinely coming for sure. And somebody might post, they might say, "Oh, my car's broken down. Can anybody give me a ride?" And you'd be like, "Yeah." But yeah, so I really struggle to like find out about shows that I'm interested in. I mostly go see like big, like I saw one of my favorite singers here at State called Cecile McLaurin Salvant just last year. I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe she's playing here." And yeah, I mean, mostly I don't really go see music. Yeah.
And so with that, do you play many concerts like nowadays or?
No. Oh, and I intended to play a release show like a couple weeks ago, but COVID has been wiling, and yeah, so we didn't do that, and that would have been our first show in like several months. We played. I think our last show was we played at School Kids in Raleigh. We opened for my friend Paige. Her band is called Pagan Rage. She's from Asheville, of Pictures of Vernon fame, but and this great band called Stress Fractures, I think from South Carolina. And yeah, no, we don't play often. We've joked about having like a seasonal show, like 4 shows a year, like tops.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be easy to sort of lose your steam if you play a ton. For me, yeah.
So going forward, you guys want to play shows, just you're not super into like the whole like touring thing.
I mean, broadly, I think I can speak for O here. Broadly, no, not super into the whole touring thing. We've never toured, the two of us. That might be a dream, if we were opening for a band that we really loved or something. But other than that, just trying to, put things together, no, that sounds stressful. Yeah.
And so obviously a lot of your time is taken up now teaching here and going to school, but do you plan on continuing to make music with O?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm finished this semester, so I'm not entirely sure where I'm gonna head after this. I might stay in North Carolina, might go to Chapel Hill or Duke or something. Might not get into any PhD program, so I might stay here. Maybe O and I will hit the big time. But yeah, we definitely intend to keep making music together.
So this is your last semester to get your master's degree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just curious, like your main focus, would you say it's music, or has kind of English and like writing kind of taken the main focus in your life?
Yeah, I mean, since I've been in school, my studies have been my focus for sure. But I think most importantly, like the way that I'm thinking about it is that right now I'm in a position where I'm able to study with people and read books and talk about books and get paid to do that, and teach also. I do enjoy teaching. Yeah, for me, I mean, music is a part of my life, and I think the way that O and I approach music is that music is an act, it's a verb. And O and I play music together all the time, just on the couch, and we don't record, 90% of it. But that's still music, it's not less music because it isn't recorded. And I think that that's how like most people have like perceived music for like, thousands and thousands of years. So, yeah, it's not that music is like fallen by the wayside or something exactly. And that, I don't know, I think it makes me sad to say that it has. But yeah, it's just shifted a little bit, my relationship to it. Because I used to really stress about music and really freak out about it. Used to bring me a lot of like fear and anxiety, and it doesn't anymore, which I think is good. Yeah.
This is circling way back to an earlier conversation, but I've been thinking about it. So you said that you have been mostly focused on Melville with your studies here, and then you mentioned like a Faulkner quote and stuff. Are those like, is that the type of like very like classical kind of like literature that you're into? Like, I don't know, because I feel like people go in, I mean, obviously people can like all different kinds of things, but I find it very interesting that like those are some that you gravitate towards. Like, do you like the kind of like, I don't even know how to describe
like the
it.
Canonical stuff.
Yeah.
Not more than like the less canonical stuff. Like, I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
like my favorite book I think is Chelsea Girls by Eileen Myles, who's like a
Yeah.
queer, like, I mean, that's a bunch of stories about what it was like to be a closeted lesbian having sex like with boys in Boston in like the 1950s,
Yeah.
like that's a complex experience, certainly mostly unrelated to Melville on the surface, right? But
Yeah.
but and I'm not a big Faulkner lover. I didn't finish the book that title came out of, I find him pretty grueling. But Melville has a certain humor and a certain like political like incisiveness that I think is just like delicious and amazing. And like, I mean, my thesis is going to be about like the way that he sort of uses the figure of a child to sort of argue for something, which is it's a very sort of queer theory reading of him, and that's happened a lot. One of my favorite movies is called Beau Travail by Claire Denis, and it's like an adaptation. It's like a queer adaptation of one of Melville's stories, and it's very famous for that. So for me, like, I'm not more. I don't gravitate more to like canonical stuff than to, less canonical stuff or more contemporary stuff. But it is important for me to, sort of disentangle like the idea that like the canon is old and like crotchety or something. Like, we get to do with texts whatever we want,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so you said you're not a big social media user, but where can people find, I guess, your like Bandcamp or Spotify?
Yeah. Our Bandcamp is osandwy.bandcamp.com. Or you could just search O Stone and Will Younts, Younts. Yeah, and the same goes for Spotify's O Stone and Will Younts. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in again. This is DJ Ocean Spray with Will Younts, and you're listening to WKNC 88.1, Raleigh, North Carolina, HD1. And I'm going to send the listeners off with Gendered Socks, a song off of their recently released album, You Help Me Say It. So, enjoy.